Three, two, one, and we're back. This is our Sunday podcast. So as we do on every Sunday, we need to give out our Surgeon General's warning. This is actually required by the federal government that before listening to Tim and Julie's Sunday podcast, you understand this is not the normal podcast.
No, it is not.
We're allowed to talk about whatever we want to talk about, even if it's frankly bizarre and leaves all of you thinking that we need some sort of, mental help. But it doesn't matter. Sunday is supposed to be fun.
That's right.
Sunday is supposed to be about reflection and anticipation, and that's what today's show is going to be. Before we get to some of the things that Julie and I have set aside to share with you guys today, I want to welcome back my lovely co-host and wife of nearly 30 years.
Thank you. It's always great to share the podcast with you, especially on this Thanksgiving weekend.
That's right.
And just a shout out to all of our great listeners. We're especially grateful for all of you, as well as, of course, our coaching clients and our family and everyone. So hopefully you guys are in a similar place this weekend, maybe taking a little bit of a breath after the big turkey show.
That's right. And Julie, this is your opportunity. This is the real estate confessional. I want you to explain to the listeners. I want you to confess about your CE problem that you had, that you procrastinated for 2 years.
Let this be a lesson to all of you.
As to why you weren't on the podcast the previous week.
Yeah, because I was slugging away in not 100, not 200, but nearly 300 hours of continuing ed, or qualifying education, as some of you call it. So yeah, don't be like me and procrastinate. I am glad that it's over with. And part of it was when I signed up for all of the different things, because you get to choose some of them, some other ones are required. I had the brilliant idea, well, you know what? I'll do some things that maybe, I need to brush up on and maybe aren't in my normal wheelhouse, like commercial real estate. Well, that was a big bunch of, I think I had to do 300 pages and 12 quizzes. I don't know.
So you guys,
but now that I'm on the other side of it, I'm glad I did it.
You guys might hear me flipping through our book, Harris Rules, right now, and I'm trying to find out which chapter in our book is about not procrastinating.
I tore that one out.
Oh, you did? Actually, I'm not seeing it. Which one is it?
I'm a doer. I do things now. I get things done.
Oh, that's right.
Somewhere.
It is in here.
Unless we're talking about me, of course.
I see it. Right, exactly. That was the funny part.
I know. Ironic. But now it's over with.
It's especially ironic considering you wrote 90% of this book.
I know.
Which, by the way, the book continues to be a international bestseller. The book started, when did we release that? June of 2019, right? Right. So thank you for all of you who continue to support the book. We really appreciate it. It's available at Barnes & Noble. It's available at Amazon. It's available. We've seen it for sale everywhere, airports and whatnot for those of you who are actually, traveling. So go and get the book. It is festive green. It is dark green with a lovely golden, I would say, font color on the cover of the book. But it's called Harris Rules. There's over 400 5-star reviews. And those of you guys who have purchased the book and have given us such great reviews, really sincerely appreciate it. And yes, it is available on Audible. So those of you like, frankly, Julie and I, who listen to books opposed to reading them, go and grab your copy of Harris Rules. Harris Rules really is, without me ramping up and, rambling about it, I'll just read you the cover of it. A real estate agent's practical, no BS, step-by-step guide to becoming rich and free. And that's truly what it is. This is not a self-published book. This is not a giveaway book. This is a book. So if you want to get it, it's on Amazon. It's on Barnes & Noble. And again, for all of you, the tens of thousands of you who have participated, who've read, who've purchased, who've shared the book with others, we sincerely appreciate it. So, Julie.
Yes.
Today is Sunday. Mm-hmm. What are you reflecting upon? It's been a nice kind of slower week for us, which I really sincerely appreciated and enjoyed.
Yeah, definitely. I'm excited for next week, especially our premier coaching calls, because this is one of my favorite times of year, particularly for so many of them that have had just an incredibly abundant year, even in pandemic times. It's just amazing. So one of the things that we're making sure that they're tuned into, and I think this ties into Thanksgiving and gratitude and the Christmas season and holiday season giving, is what are you, there's a couple of things. What are you doing for your past client center of influence? Whether those are pop buys or drive-through presents. There's lots of different versions of what they're doing. The wrapping paper project we'll talk about in premiere this week. And all of these things, by the way, do create business for them, not to mention make them feel warm and fuzzy and giving back. But also, one of my favorite fun things is to do the secret Santa shopper, to find out how you can be giving. So that's an exciting week for us, and it kind of brings them around to gratitude and getting ready for next year. It's a good kind of mindset week, I think.
So there's a lot of, there's really agents fall into three categories. Not just agents, really business owners in general,
People.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So this year was either a down year, maybe it was not what you expected at all. This year was sort of on target with what your expectations were and your goals. And if you're in real estate, frankly, you probably had your best year ever, or at least your best year in a long time. It was fascinating as all the, the big real estate brands like EXP and Caldwell and all these other companies came out and started talking about their third quarter earnings. And of course, they, were well beyond expectations in terms of the amount of revenues these companies were making, simply for the fact that, guess what? People were buying real estate. And we're going to be doing a podcast it'll be in December for sure, where we're going to talk about essentially the 10 biggest mega trends that no one's really anticipating or talking about. And there's some things that are absolutely remarkable. They're going to be affecting. Now, look, you can say positively or negatively. We're not going to judge. We're just going to tell you basically what we think is going to happen. You can call these real estate predictions, but truly what these are is beyond a real estate prediction. But what's going to be affecting not just real estate markets, but essentially consumer behavior on a whole. So you better write that down, Julie. That's a really good topic before we forget here.
Yep.
You can use that one. Yeah. And so I'll tell you one of the things I've been reading a lot about because I'm just so geeked up about this. And then we're going to talk about what we're going to be sharing with you guys for the next 30 days in this podcast. Julie's spent a lot of time on the content, and I'm really, frankly, I think it's fantastic. And I'll tell you the punchline is we're going to be going through the real estate treasure map with all of you. And the real estate treasure map is our fill-in-the-blank business plan that we give away, and we're going to tell you how to get that in a second. But for the most part, what we're going to be talking with all of you, again, for this coming week and for the rest of this year, is going to be getting your 2021 mindset and business plan, personal business plan, completely and totally knocked out. So if you've been looking for direction, if you've been maybe you think you have direction, but you want to just refine your direction, you want to get your coordinates into what your desired designation is to be a little bit more accurate, that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be giving you military-grade GPS so you can actually signal in on exactly where you want to be 12 months from now.
That's right, and very personalized. So that's why we kind of start you guys out with a little bit of mindset stuff, get your head straight so that you can drill down. This is going to be extremely personalized to you.
That's right. So I'll tell you, Julie, there's some things I've been reading about a lot during this last week. Because this last week, you and I basically took the week off, which is something weird for us.
It is weird.
And we actually did a pretty decent job.
I know, which is also weird.
We did a decent job of not working.
Yeah, shocking.
We're terrible at that.
We are.
Before I tell them a couple of things I was reading about that I find to be nerdly interesting, which is really what it is. It is fascinating as I didn't really do anything work-wise. We didn't do a podcast this past week. We took, we really did take some dedicated time off. Yeah. As you said, we were working on our, what do you call it, our resorting.
yes.
Since we
stopped failing resort.
We practiced our resorting this week. We live in Dorado, Puerto Rico at a resort. So and we normally just basically work too many hours. But it is fascinating. As I was giving myself some downtime this week, I feel the anticipation, but also the normal end of year nervousness that I used to feel when we sold real estate.
Oh, yeah. It's still, that's deep-seated.
That's what I'm saying. It's so weird that I cannot get that out of my
Even
system.
though it's 81 degrees outside, it still kind of sticks with you.
Well, it's not even weather-related with me. It's just basically the normal fears that you always have at the end of one thing, at the start of another, year, calendar, doesn't matter, learning experience. It's just the normal, can I do it type
Well,
thing.
can I do it again?
Right. I know.
And that's a very strong feeling. I see it with our very experienced agents who have had just an amazing year. I also see it with agents who maybe this is actually their first year ever that they can reflect and say, God, I really killed it, and then they look at next year and they go, oh,
exactly.
Can I do it again?
But isn't it interesting?
It is.
It must be something, again, I've really been spending, 2 weeks ago, I spent a lot of time on the podcast, a lot of great feedback about it, where I was sort of talking about all these things that are deeply rooted in our brains that we're sort of told we're not supposed to be experiencing. For example, negative thoughts. Like so much has been written and said and talked about and preached about. So many gurus and mindset coaches and all these, woo-woo people, just tell you constantly negative thoughts are a bad thing. You shouldn't have them. And here's your 15-step system to get rid of negative thoughts. And all these other types of things that essentially are innate with all of us. It's built into our software. We're all designed to essentially, like for example, the other thing I talked about on the podcast 2 weeks ago was, essentially negative. I said negative thoughts, but also like what triggers the negative thinking? Bad news, for example. People are addicted to bad news, but why is it that we want bad news? why is it that we have negative thoughts? Like nobody thinks about.
Sure.
I don't want to, go down a rabbit hole with regards to thinking about why people don't think about something or do think about something. But here's the conclusion I came to. Is that negative thoughts must be part of all of our software, and it must be part of the survival code, right? Mm-hmm. So the survival code that was interwoven into all of our original iOS, operating systems way back, back when we were basically primal man and primal woman, right? Back in those, essentially Homo sapiens were essentially, it turns out, competing with a lot of other bipeds at the time. We're all kind of, competing to see what the dominant, species was going to be. It's been concluded that we are on the planet at the same time. It wasn't just Homo sapiens or humans in their modern form and no other, bipeds. We were competing against all kinds of different forms of man.
It was quite literally survival of the fittest.
And it was, and it wasn't, and the essentially those when you do the 23andMe thing, you'll see that they have this test for Neanderthal, and it's because the Neanderthals and modern men, or what became modern men, they interbred, and so literally you have differing levels of Neanderthal DNA in you. Well, all the other previous forms of humans, if you want to call them humans, they essentially weren't able to be competitive and they died out. The one dominant species that essentially won was ours, and essentially the other species were killed off in essence, or they ran out of areas to graze and raise families and hunt and all the rest of it. But, it's fascinating as I think about, okay, well, why is it that people have negative thoughts? Why is it people that seek out negative news? And the obvious answer is because it is innate into how all of us are wired to think. In other words, this is an example I gave a couple weeks ago, and I think it really makes the point. If you're, like right now, we're told in this world that we're supposed to always be looking for positive news, and I get it, right? You don't want to fill your mind with negative crap because you won't leave any room for positive stuff, right? But the reality of it is that the negative stuff actually is seeking of it is designed to prevent you from being surprised by something that might be life-threatening. So here's the visual for you. You're walking on this nice path, and I don't know, where would it be, Julie?
It could be in our jungle here.
Yeah, that's true. Here in Puerto Rico. Well, so you're walking on this nice path, and you're there with your animal skin loincloth and your spear, and you have a long beard. Whatever it is, you get the point. It looks like something out of a historic society, National Geographic video. You guys get the point. And you're walking through, and you come and out of the forest walks somebody else similar to you, non-threatening. You sort of recognize them. Maybe they're part of the same tribe as you or whatever. And you're about to enter into the forest that they're leaving, and you ask them, you don't want to just sit around and talk about the pretty flowers and the perfect temperature and the bison meat or whatever the hell they ate the previous night. You want to know what's lurking in that forest that you might be, need to be prepared to experience. So in other words, your mind goes right to survival things and you're looking for that negative news. I know that's maybe a little bit of an odd example of why we seek out negative information, but that's absolutely the reason why, because the negative information keeps you alive. The positive information doesn't.
It's like you're recreating the mastodon chase,
right?
Right? And very subconsciously and very innate, and probably gives you a little bit of an adrenaline rush because you're, experiencing that.
Well, think about when you're learning how to be a fighter pilot, right? When you're learning how to be a fighter pilot and they're putting you through all the sims, you're not just sitting in the sim and flying in a beautiful sunny day.
Right.
You're basically, the whole point of the training in the sim is essentially worst case scenario. Mm-hmm. So they're going to throw at you all kinds of, crazy ass, maybe happen 1 in a billion flight type scenarios just to see how you react, to see if you can get better. I mean, that's essentially the same kind of conceptually what I'm trying to express to you. You want to prepare for the worst case scenario. That's how you basically survive. And so the same goes with, negative news in general. Negative thoughts. Okay, there's an interesting thought, right? And why is it that we have negative thoughts? It has to be part of the same original software. Negative thinking, again, if you wake up in the morning and you're just full of, here's the irony of it. In our modern lives, obviously the negative thinking can work against you, but understand that the negative thinking, the thoughts that maybe cause you to be overly cautious or overly careful and maybe overly skeptical in some cases, if you let those go too far, then it basically causes consternation and procrastination. You don't go anywhere.
But see, that's the whole point, is you're always going to have thoughts like that. It's pre-programmed into you, and mostly for your own good.
That's right.
You just have to learn how to monitor, not to let it go too far, not to go down that rabbit hole, right? To feel those things and not get all wound up in the elimination of all negative thought, because that actually can hurt you as well, just in a different way.
It does, because if you can't get rid of all your negative thought, and my point I'm trying to make here is that you cannot. It is impossible. Even monks don't get rid of all their negative thought. You're always going to have negative thought because it must be innate into the way we were designed, to the way our brains have evolved. So there's an interesting thought for all of you. And I talked about this with a lot of detail and a whole bunch of other points 2 weeks ago on the podcast. So you guys might want to go back and listen to those shows. But, really, as I was going through that exercise, it was a little bit cathartic for me because it is fascinating. Like, you and I have spent literally hundreds of thousands of hours on coaching calls. Not even to mention what all of our coaches have done. Not even to mention all the different forms of media where we've been, and the reason that you and I have a tendency to steer away from the overt mindset stuff is because the mindset stuff just keeps you in place. It doesn't actually move you along.
And you can convince yourself that there's something really wrong with you if you spend too much time on that. And maybe, it reminds me of like drug commercials, right? Where you listen to it and you're like, God, I didn't know you could get that. Maybe I've got that, right? So I think that it's taken with a grain of salt. And of course, you've got to keep your head straight with things. But really monitor how you're handling that.
And so we're going to talk next week about a topic that Julie wrote, actually. But before I tell you what that topic is, here's the punchline to the whole negative thinking thing. You cannot control the first negative thought, but you can learn to control how you react to it. And when you learn to control how you react to it, then you actually have more of control of essentially your emotional state. But do understand that you can learn this and everything else while you're in action. And just to essentially be spending a lot of time worrying about your mindset, reading about mindset, doing all the normal things that a lot of people have just come to expect. Well, this is the time of year when I'm going to focus on what my big thoughts are, discover my big why. So guys, I want you to really think about in your lives or the lives of other people you've studied before, the thing that you remember them for, the accomplishments that they're known for, they didn't come from their planning and their plotting. They came from their doing. So if you really want to put your mindset in a great place starting into the year, have action be your dominant thought, not thought being your dominant action. And that's really incredibly important because if you even take the wrong action, but in the right direction, you're going to win. But if you just basically think about what actions you're going to take and you never actually do anything, i.e. work on your mindset, you're going to be right where you started the year. So as you kind of round the bend on this year, and all of us, oh my gosh, do all of us need a break. I mean, holy crap, this year was crazy.
Very, very strange.
I don't even want to make a list of all the bizarre things, but I want to tell them a little bit of some cool things. Sorry, going back to what I was just rambling about. I have to say, this new technology is just coming out called Apple Glass. That is going to be, I think, more far-reaching as far as the way it changes society. And I'll describe to them what Apple Glass is. We've been writing about it on our main site, timandjulieharris.com. If you guys not gone there, we update that with probably, 5 to 10 new news stories a day. We have a small staff writers, a team of writers that are constantly churning out content. It's great stuff, but we write about things that aren't just real estate related, sort of business entrepreneurial related. So Apple Glass, what they are, now hear me out, listeners, is they're glasses. Now, you don't have to have a prescription. They can just be glasses that you wear, which, by the way, is not a bad idea to wear glasses all the time because, it does protect something called your eyes.
Kind of important.
Yeah, kind of important. So having glasses is actually a good idea. But look, the fact is that these Apple Glass, it's just called Apple Glass, it's not even plural, is going to essentially be the new interface that you're going to have similar to the interface on your iPhone. So if you can imagine, now I know when I say that, like when I originally read that, I thought, oh my gosh, like I want to be looking through glasses, which I do wear most of the day. And I just want to be seeing a bunch of freaking icons that, one's trying to get me to click here, click there, click the other there. No, it doesn't work like that. Basically, the icons you can call them up. So you don't have to essentially be looking through your Apple Glass and then essentially be seeing all these competing little, brightly colored icons trying to get you to trigger them, basically. You're in control, yeah. But what the cool thing about the glasses themselves is that, so Google came out with glasses that looked like something from, I don't know, something from a bad Star Trek, frankly. They were terrible looking. I mean, they were cool looking, but no one's going to wear them, you know?
Too AI, too bizarre to normalize.
Yeah, super geek glasses is what they were. So these new ones that Apple's coming out with, is they're teaming up with eyeglass frame fashion designers, and they've made these glasses that when you look at them, look exact. Now, there's only little prototypes and leaks and pictures that have come out, but they look exactly like normal glasses, but they have built in around them freaking cameras. And you have to really, really look at the frames to see the cameras. And these things don't weigh a lot. You know, I haven't seen or felt them, obviously, but just from the people that have gotten hands on them, they said they don't weigh a lot. You can't overtly tell that they're, Apple glass. But here's all the cool things you can use them for. And I want you to imagine this. So you're walking down the street. Now, some of this stuff on the surface doesn't sound that remarkable, but I want you to actually consider what you could do with this information. So you're walking down the street. And you're lost. So it's going to have, I forget what the LiDAR. So these glasses have LiDAR built into them. So when you're walking, again, down the street, I know I said that a third time, sorry, you can basically raise your hand, either hand, both hands, and then you can basically do a hand motion, and that's what wakes the glasses up. And then what happens is basically, now I want you to imagine, you're walking down the street. Again, you're going to look a little bit touched when this.
Until we all get used to seeing this.
Until people start getting used to seeing people do this. But you're going to put your hand in front. I'm actually doing this to try to demonstrate to Julie because I haven't told her about this. So you're going to put your hand in front of you're going to wave. You're going to wake the glasses up, so they're just going to become normal passive glasses. You wave, then you wake them up, and then with your hand in front of your face, you're going to be able to tell what icon you want to click. So if you would decide you're walking down the street and you want to basically start recording what you're doing, you can wake the glasses up, and then an icon will appear in the lens, but your hand outside in front of your face. How do I describe what I'm doing right now? I don't know how to describe it. It's too crazy.
You're doing a good job.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't want. You're not touching the lens.
No.
Okay.
Somehow it's sensing what your hand gesture is.
Right.
And you're touching the icon, you're turning it on and off, you're telling it what you want to do.
Right.
The point being, I think, that you're not inundated all the time with all these different signals, and you're not having to look, your eyeball's not looking at the actual glass, you have to look through the glass.
Yeah.
And I kind of imagine...
They can't see it. The people from the outside can't see what you're seeing either. So you can basically go... When you're walking down the street, let's say you want to decide you want to record what you're seeing. You do a hand gesture in front of your glasses. Maybe you have your 5 or 6 favorite options appear, and then you just literally in front of it, out into the air in front of you, you click on the one that's on the far left, and then you start recording. And then the glasses will start recording what you're seeing. And then you could start basically opposed to, hold on, I want to take a picture. Hold on, Zoe, don't run so fast. Or, I want to save this moment. You can actually pull out your glasses, or you can essentially wake your glasses up, and then you can choose a, whatever icon is going to then trigger the camera. Now, here's the other thing I saw. Now, I did see this demonstrated. This was badass. Okay, now think about this. Completely interactive nav. So you're going to basically be able to trigger nav. Did I tell you this? Okay, so you're going to trigger nav in your glasses. Now again, we're going to stick with the walking thing, right?
Right.
Because you and I get lost all the time. We go to different cities.
All the time.
Yeah. We were down in Puerto Rico walking in circles just the other day in San Juan. So you're walking on the street and you activated your glasses. Now, normally when you're looking at a map, it shows a topographical map or it shows a 3D map.
Sure.
But now it's actually going to appear in your view through your lenses, where it's going to show you the arrow going around the corner telling you to turn.
That's got to be better.
Yeah. I mean, so you're going to be wearing your glasses. You're going to be walking down the street. The thing's going to then basically tell you essentially where to turn here or where to turn there. The thing's going to monitor, the glasses are going to monitor what's going on around you, right? So if basically cool. You're going to be constantly, it'll know where you are. It'll know essentially if you get lost, how to unlost you, and all the rest of it. So what is that, and how does this pertain to, say, for example, sales or real estate? Think of all the different ways you can do it. All right, here's where my mind went. You and I have done a crap ton of Zooms.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we've basically been doing nonstop this whole year. Zoom, 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 zoom. Okay. How do we make it? How does this technology integrate with Zooms and with video conferencing? See, that I haven't quite figured out yet.
Well, I mean, I imagine, since I'm in the coaching world a lot, I imagine, like, let's say that you're a coaching client and you were talking on the phone with somebody and you turned your glasses on so I, as your coach, could hear and see what you were going through.
Or maybe like while you're actually making a prospecting call.
Exactly. And maybe I could, send you a little script or something.
You're actually saying something I forgot to mention. So the Google, or I keep on saying Google, slap me every time I say that. Apple Glass is also going to have a earbud integration so that you can, as Julie just said, you can be in a situation where you're wearing your glasses and you're maybe in a listing presentation. Julie is watching you, is seeing what you're seeing through your glasses, right? So she's sitting she's wearing her Apple glasses. She's up and, she and I are walking around the Louvre with Zoe in Paris, and you had call in a panic. I have a last minute listing appointment. I need help. Julie's going to sit aside on a bench inside the museum because she's such a great coach. Personally, I wouldn't have taken your call. And she's going to sit there, and you're going to activate your Apple Glass, and she's going to you're going to be giving your live listing presentation, and you didn't remember all your scripts or whatever, and she's going to tell you what to say and how to say it. The seller's going to say something to you, and Julie's going to tell you in your ear how to overcome the objection.
I know. You know what my mind went to, just speaking of survival of the fittest, is I would love to have one of my native Spanish-speaking friends like with me when I have to go do something and instant translate and see what I'm going through and say, no, you need to do this or go to that office or say this.
I got you covered. All right. So I got you covered. Yeah. On the new iPhone 12s, there is, if you guys have those iPhone 12s, Julie and I both got the new ones. They have a app on the phone that comes preloaded where you can put in a whole phrase or a word, and you can translate it from English to any language in the world. And it can be done through spoken language. So if you're walking around on the streets of Paris and we don't know very much French and we want to ask for something, you just say it into the phone and it translates. Say it out. But you can also then do the same using the same apps for your Apple Glass.
That's going to be awesome.
Which is the reason that supposedly they loaded the new operating system that's going to be using the same iOS, which is called Big Sur, on Apple Glass.
But think about how much that opens up the world to everybody.
I know.
It's awesome.
I know. Now think about if you're going just keep running with this. So you understand how it could work hypothetically on a listing presentation. But what about on a virtual, you are going to see a house, your buyer's not local, you want to go and walk through the house. You can go then walk through the house with that. You could do the same thing now with your iPhone, but it's not the same. It's not the same experience.
No, you could literally walk through with them. Right? They can see what you're seeing through your glasses, and different than. I mean, I think things like Matterport and stuff like that is awesome. But if you were with me walking through to see something, maybe you're relocating, whatever the situation is. Maybe you're freaked out by COVID, but you don't want to be in the house. And I'm walking through. You can say, "Oh, that looks interesting. Show me more about the." Whatever you see in that room, or show me more of the backyard view. And then I can stop because now I know that that's something that's really important to you, and maybe scan it. And now you're super comfortable. I think it could potentially speed up the process of transactions, of decision making, everything.
So obviously you can use your iPhone and just videotape the whole thing.
Sure.
But there is a degree or 3 or 4 degrees of separation between what that technological experience is versus what we're describing. Because when you're looking through somebody videotaping on their iPhone or whatever, right? It's not quite the same. And you said Matterport, very cool technology. Super for cool. Sure. But it's still not the same thing.
No.
I mean, when you and I are buying real estate rentals and whatever, and there happens to be a Matterport for it, it doesn't really, in my opinion, it's a nice seller.
It's nice, but it's not that personalized.
There's something missing.
And you're also looking at what somebody else was focused on. I've seen some of them that don't come out that great. You're like, why did you even film that room?
Well, again, the technology is limiting. So if let's say a 10 is actually being there and having the experience, and say a 1 is basically you're just reading a description, maybe a textual description. Sure. So the Matterport realistically is a 5 or a 6.
Yeah, I would agree with
Will
that.
the technology ever get to a 10? I think it will, and that's the other thing I wanted to talk to you about, which is really cool. All right, so you guys, this is the second thing I've been reading about a lot. Because again, I'm always trying to envision how this is going to evolve and how it's going to make real estate and, frankly, business professionals, salespeople in particular, more efficient. All right, so ready for this next one? All right, so as you know, Santa may or may not be bringing Zoe an Oculus.
Yes, may or may not be, depending on how it goes.
Depending on how good she is for the next 30 days.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but I was studying the Oculus because I wanted to make sure we weren't walking into some sort of, I mean, it is owned by Facebook, so God knows what you're going to, what the hidden agenda might be, right? Mm-hmm. So I wanted to look to see what the different kids' games were. And I mean, she's going to love it. So it did show up. Did I tell you?
No.
Yeah. It's in the closet.
Got it stashed.
It's right here.
I got it.
It's in our office closet. Yeah. Okay. So, but here's what's really cool. Mm-hmm. There is going to be coming out within maybe 12 months, and they already have these, but they're just not very commercially available yet. Complete haptic bodysuits. Okay? Crazy. Complete haptic bodysuits. And so there is a business in Southern California, which I understand, where you can go in and you can put on a complete haptic bodysuit, and then they put on essentially a whole Oculus sort of 3D, headgear, where essentially it's not just sitting in a chair or not just sort of dancing around like where only your eyes and your ears are having the experience, but your entire body will have the experience. That's going to be freaky. So by haptic, what that means, guys, is like when you touch your phone and the phone vibrates, or you sometimes
a little click or something.
Well, it's a little vibration, right? And you can feel that's haptic, right? Haptic feedback. So they have technology in the Southern California businesses, for example, where you can go in there with your family and you guys can all be part of some sort of, horde of warriors that are hunting dragons or whatever. And so you put on these whole haptic outfits with the 3D headgear. I heard about this on Joe Rogan, by the way. And then you go in there, and as a family unit, you see each other in your, in your VR glasses, and you hear each other because there's mics that are integrated in there. So you're literally in this virtual world with your avatar, and you're fighting these dragons, and you're feeling. It's like if something hits you, if the dragon throws a rock at you and it hits you in your leg, the haptic feedback on the bodysuit makes it so you feel like you're getting pressure on your leg.
It's like crazy simulation stuff.
It's the next level. And I think about, okay, well, if that's badass, right? Yeah. Consumers are just going to love that. So my mind's going crazy, but imagine like how that's going to take driving simulations. I'm a big car nerd, right? How that's going to take driving simulations to the next level. So, the most expensive VR driver simulation, it's not the same because you don't feel the G-forces. You don't feel the pressure on your body.
Well, all kinds of different training situations. I mean, think about aircraft and...
Yeah, exactly.
Even boats and cars and the whole nine. So I think that's really fascinating. And I think that may morph into more experiences like what Joe Rogan was talking about, with the whole, gaming, essentially. Right. But yeah, I'm just trying to imagine if you could outfit your dogs to go hunting with you, or, like... how your mom would do with that.
You imagine Maximus with a haptic, or we have this extra large French bulldog. You imagine him in a haptic suit?
I'd put him in like a rhino suit. He would have just the best time.
Speaking of which, Julie has a celebrity alert. She has a very interesting experience on the beach the other day. Remember, Sunday podcast, yes. We're allowed to talk wherever the hell we want to talk about.
That's right.
Oh, we haven't talked about what we're talking about next week yet. We should do that.
Okay.
We'll do that in a second after you talk about your big celebrity reveal.
Well, yes.
Don't just get to it. Make it a story.
So I take Max on a walk every morning because he's an unusual Frenchie that's actually oddly athletic. And so he has to be worn out every morning or he'll just be a total pest. So I walk him for about an hour every morning up through the neighborhood. Then you go through a couple of palm trees and you're on the beach. And, he goes on a little Frenchie swim.
How long does it take you to walk up to the beach from here?
Maybe 10 minutes.
Yeah,
you think to the 10? Start of the beach.
Maybe 10? Not really.
Yeah, maybe less, somewhere in there.
Right.
But so you walk up basically a little road and then through some palm trees, and that opens up to the beach, and then you can go on another walk from there. So I'm walking.
It's pretty much as idyllic and as beautiful as you can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, it's motivational. I don't have any problem getting up in the morning.
Right.
So I'm walking Max, doing our normal routine, and I look up, and there's Ricky Martin with one of his kids, who's like maybe 11, 12 years old. And it was so early in the morning, and I hadn't had my coffee yet. My first thought was not, oh, that's Ricky Martin.
Take what you told me.
I thought, that's a good-looking, handsome guy, and his kid's cute too. I was like, okay. So, and I'm used to everybody wanting to pet Max, so they stopped and said hi, and what a nice-looking, bulldog and all that, and we walked on. Went our separate ways. I think they were on their way to surf.
She didn't know it was Ricky Martin as a punchline.
So then, like 5 minutes later, I'm going, I wonder if that was Ricky Martin, because we know that he lives in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
We just haven't personally run into him yet. And so on my walk home with Max, I'm Googling, and the picture that came up on whatever it was, Wikipedia or whatever, was exactly him. I mean, there was no doubt. So that was exciting. And I'm glad that I didn't know, because I probably would have made myself into some kind of fool,
I doubt it.
Like, somebody said, "Well, why didn't you get a selfie with him?" I'm not really.
Yeah, you would have made
into
yourself
that.
into a fool.
I probably would.
Like when
been
you met James Bond, when you met Daniel Craig.
Yeah. I'd rather not know until later. It's just more comfortable.
That's true.
But he was friendly and kind and very enthusiastic for
You guys had a nice little conversation, though, didn't you?
It was awesome.
What did you guys talk about?
Oh, just Max, that I think he was surprised to see a Frenchie looking, like he hadn't passed out in the sun. So it was good. It was good. And somebody else.
Remember what a big star he was in the 90s?
Yeah.
Gosh, he was a monster star.
Apparently, he's here to take care of his dog. So I don't know, but it's it's nice to have interesting people in the hood.
I think he lives full time in Miami, though. He lives part time here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
but still,
so that's
cool,
kind
right?
of a nice morning surprise.
But we've living here. We've run into or heard about. I mean, who was just rattle off all the celebrity names. I mean, Julie and I are from. Yeah. You guys out in LA are going. Oh my God! I see people every day. And when Julie and I would go to LA too, you'd literally see celebrities all over the place. Where's that street we used to go to there? Those little goofy Robinson.
That's right, Robertson Road.
Yeah,
maybe
all those little goofy boutiques.
Yeah, I mean, you'd see people out on the street all the time. A lot of the people who live here are more, I don't know, kind of business celebrities too, like
definitely
economists and
writers. But who are the fun ones we saw? Brooke, what's her name?
I can't remember.
She's from the 70s. Yeah, Brooke Shields was here.
Yeah.
She was here last holiday. There was a whole bunch of baseball players that were here. We don't follow baseball, so don't ask me for names. Who's the comedian? Adam Sandler was here.
Yeah.
We never saw him, but we kept on hearing stories like while he was here of all the people that just saw him. You just missed Adam Sandler. You just missed Adam Sandler. Yeah, it's funny. But a whole bunch of other who was basketball. Michael Jordan was here. Yeah. He was supposedly staying over in Enclave. So yeah. Anyway.
And occasionally they show up to the gym and you're like look over your shoulder and you're working out with somebody. So it's kind of cool.
For us, having been absolutely less than poor people when we got married 30 years ago, living here, living like we are, is definitely an experience in, I don't know, what would you call it? Perhaps maybe we allowed new software to be loaded over the years.
Otherworldly sometimes.
Yeah, it is. Speaking of which, getting to what we're talking about next week, and we are going to come up with a better title than this, but this is really what the theme is. So this is what you have to look forward to, and Julie did.
In the normal podcast.
In the normal podcast.
Weekly podcast.
Not our Sunday talking about wherever the hell we want to talk about Sunday, on Sunday podcast. Mm-hmm. All right, 15 thoughts to embrace while planning your best year ever. This is a Julie content thing, so lots of good details. We're not going to tell you any of these points. You have to tune in tomorrow. Mm-hmm. But it is 15 points, and this is great stuff. And what we're going to be doing is leading up to walking through with all of you how to complete the real estate treasure map. And starting tomorrow, I will give you a direct link so you can download the real estate treasure map for free. It is available on Amazon, but don't buy it there. I'll just give it to you. So look for that information tomorrow on the show. And we're going to start out tomorrow by talking about the 15 thoughts to embrace while planning your best year ever. And I'm going to ask you a question. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that you and I are, all of us, I hate the word struggle, but we have to be it's an omnipresent concern at all times, certainly in my brain. And I think it is in everyone's, but they don't necessarily consciously think about it. Complacency.
Yeah.
And complacency is something that sneaks in so many different variations, in so many different forms, that it's really insidious. And the problem is if you have complacency that's slipped into your life in different ways, maybe your relationships, maybe your health, maybe your finances, maybe your spirituality, maybe
getting your CE done.
Getting your CE done like Julie. Well, that stuff has a tendency to catch up with you. And if you've been, again, procrastinating in many different ways, then unfortunately the amount of unraveling that you're going to have to deal with while you essentially fix all your complacency issues, it's going to be in some cases insurmountable. It just is like almost too much to really move past. So complacency, and this is mostly for those of you who are younger who are listening, you got to be really, really aware that in life you can't ever stay the same. Nothing stays the same, no matter how much you want it to stay the same. Everything changes. Like, for example, people think, this is an interesting delusion, I'll say, about being rich, quote unquote. Mm-hmm. And rich is where your money works for you and you no longer have to work for your money. So people have this fantasy that you get to have a certain level of wealth. And I get this question, frankly. Mm-hmm. I do. You do too. Mm-hmm. Like, when are you guys going to, when's going to be enough? When are you going to quit? When are you going to have this, the other thing? How many, but that's the question. That question is more of them exposing how they actually think about money in general or life or complacency. Sure. So what they're doing when you hear that question, that's their mindset, that they're thinking, saying, I'm going to essentially try to get to the point where I don't have to work anymore, or I can essentially give myself permission to be complacent, right? And I feel that way too, especially this time of year, so I'm not going to lie. And there's certainly a lot of aspects. Well, okay, you and I basically went back. We were at the gym the other day, and for, 60 days, we've just been doing our own routine.
Yeah.
And we used a...
we weren't doing nothing, but...
No, we were walking. We
Maintenance.
typically walk 6 miles a day. We typically go to the gym for 3. Okay, so we used an app with a professional trainer, and you and I did a 45-minute workout, and that was 2 days ago, and I'm still sore.
Me too.
So, but there's an example. So we thought we were not being complacent with our physical...
There's different levels to everything.
That's my point.
You always have to be moving forward. And, you have to work on yourself before you go working on everyone else. That's, part of it. And think about, even to the money thing, right? Money is a tool, right? And when you start being complacent about that, even if you get, I'll give you an example, even, having rental properties bring in supposedly passive income, right? But if you get complacent and you don't take care of that stuff, the rentals start to come apart on you, you lose tenants, your rent goes down, you have more maintenance and upkeep, you get sick of dealing with it, then you sell it, you have less equity. You can't just sit around and, be complacent. Even when you get to that point, you can be a little bit more complacent, but you can't just, have your head in the sand. It's just like, when you stop working out, even if you don't have a terrible diet, by doing nothing, you're not getting nothing. You're actually probably going to gain weight. You're going to get sore when you work out. You're stepping back. And when I was in music school, the saying was, any day you don't practice, you think you lost a day, but you actually fell back 2 or 3 days.
Yep.
And then when you go back, it's that much harder. Just like working out, I think, is like that. When you take a week off and go back to it, it's always harder.
Especially the older you get.
But
not just for physical stuff, for all aspects. The older you get, the harder it is to basically regain momentum.
Absolutely.
There's no two ways about it.
Yeah. It's crazy. So,
fighting
complacency.
It's not just a mental exercise that makes it harder to regain momentum the older you get. There's actually some, there's some physical stuff that goes along with it too.
Yeah.
I think I have the ability to concentrate for longer periods of time now than I did when I was younger. And I think I can focus with more intensity now, but it's not the same as, say, for example, 10 years ago. So the older you get, I think the harder it is for you to regain momentum. So a special message for our younger listeners, do yourself a favor and don't allow yourself to become complacent.
Nope.
And know that in no aspect of your life can things stay the same, because they won't.
Well, this is why we have the treasure map, though. So to really focus you in on all those different areas of life, financial being the obvious one. And to actually have a plan and to not just go through life going, well, it'd be nice to do more deals next year. That's not a number. Okay?
Well, you're bringing up a good point though, because if people don't know, for example, you and I, let's use the gym thing because that's a good example.
Sure.
So we use this guy named Magnus. I don't remember his last name. His prescribed workout, and we heard about him frankly because he's worked out with a lot of some of our other personal friends and people we know of and stuff like that. The guy's pretty famous out on the West Coast. Anyway, so we thought we were working out, but what we really were doing is becoming complacent in our physical aspects, and it wasn't until basically we decided to step our game back up that we realized that we'd become complacent. Now, with regards to money, here's the interesting thing, is that if you think you have enough and you stop tending to your garden and pulling the weeds and monitoring it, you'll lose what you already have. And that's really the big takeaway with regards to complacency. What complacency does, when you allow any form of complacency to creep into your life, anything with regards to relationships, how you look, the clothes you wear, the haircut you have, the everything and anything, when you allow that to creep in, you lose what you had. There's no point in your life where you can get to the point and say, I don't have to think about that anymore. I don't have to do that anymore. You will lose actually what you had. I don't know how else to express it other than that.
No, that's true.
You have to constantly be moving forward.
The issue is this. That doesn't happen immediately.
No.
It takes time. And you don't just wake up going, holy cow, I've fallen back on this and I'm getting complacent on that. It's almost always, sadly, some kind of a catalyst that has to happen to smack you into shape.
So save that thought. I know you're about to say. And she's going the exact same direction I wanted to go too. So this time of year, this is about is really giving yourself, obviously, some downtime if you're wanting it. Not all of you are, but most of you are. And also giving yourself an opportunity to hit the hard reset button. And I will strongly suggest that you hit the hard reset button first on all the things you're doing in your business. Because one thing you can be 100% assured of is whatever worked in your business last year to generate business, whether it worked great or marginally or just terribly, it's not going to work as good this year because everything is changing faster than it ever has before. And again, we're going to be talking about these things on that podcast idea I had. But really, at the end of the day, technologies, expectations from consumers, brokerage models, all these things are going to be changing at such a clip that if you think, okay, it worked last year, it worked the year before, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing, what you're going to start seeing is that your business, it's going to be hard. Well, here, ask yourself this question, listeners. Is it harder or easier for you than it was, say, 2 or 3 years ago doing the same idea? For example, if you were, invested in lots of centers of influence in past client marketing and advertising, and that's been your primary source of business, is it becoming more plentiful or a little bit harder to generate business or a lot harder to generate business from that source of business? Look at, for example, the way technology absolutely will gut you in your business. If you've invested a lot in social networking and you've invested a lot in just different technological platforms, all it takes is those technological platforms to change their algorithm, change their rules, and you're screwed. I mean, it's happened time and time again with agents that invested a lot in Facebook ads or in Google this or videos or this, that, the other thing. And as soon as those platforms decide to change how they go about, putting emphasis or exposing one piece of content versus another, and that had been somewhat of a driver of leads for you, as soon as you start basically becoming over-reliant on third parties to help you lead generate and provide your leads, you're over. You're screwed. You become dependent on something that you can't control. That's not a smart way to build a business.
That's exactly it. So pay attention over this next week. We're going to help you get there. Don't get complacent about listening to podcasts. Don't get complacent about taking notes and doing something about it. You're going to hear some points that we do next week where you're going to go, yep, I know that. I've been practicing that. I'm on top of that. And then the next point's going to be, oh, I really need to work on that one.
Right.
This is going to be my thing for first quarter or for next year. And you're going to integrate that into your actual business plan. I don't want anybody listening to go into next year without an actual plan. That's kind of a hack, really.
Right.
I mean,
the way to do it mentally, and this is what you and I have been doing this past week, and we're going to do it through December too. Mm-hmm. By the way, if those of you who are in Miami, Julie and I are going to be up in Miami for a week, starting the 4th of December. 4th through what day?
I don't know, 4th through the 8th, I think.
4th through the 8th? Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to be up in Miami, and we're staying at the Ritz-Carlton on 22nd. Isn't that it, in South Beach?
I think that's right.
Yeah. That's what people told me. It's on 22nd, yeah. So we're going to be staying there. So if you're in Miami and you want to, grab a cup of coffee, let us know. I know I'm probably just screwed myself because we have hundreds of you in Miami. But I know you just gave me a look. But I don't care.
It's
I love our guys.
No, it's fun. That's why we're going.
You can go shopping and I'll hang out with all of them on the beach.
It's good.
You'd like that, wouldn't you?
I would.
So we're going to be talking about essentially how you can essentially use this time, this next 30 days before the turn of the calendar to, frankly, get your head right, get your emotions right, create a plan for yourself on other aspects of your life. But really, this is your opportunity to really be introspective, really be inward looking, which is what introspective means, about how you think. And then question your paradigms, question your own dogma. Look to see where you're complacent, own it, admit it, and then create a plan to move past it. That way, frankly, you can keep positive momentum. It's a myth that you can't have year after year of ever-increasing quality of life, ever-increasing health, until obviously you can't.
Right.
Ever-increasing financial experiences, ever-increasing spirituality, ever-increasing all aspects of the things that are most important to you in your life and the 5 categories of life, which you're going to be working through on your real estate treasure map, which is, Julie's getting a quiz, 5 areas of life.
Okay. Financial, physical, I always do the 3
family,
F's.
educational, spiritual.
Right. I do the 3 F's first.
Right. Yeah. So those are the 5 prominent areas of life that people set goals around, and those are all covered with great detail in the Real Estate Treasure Map, which we'll be giving you a free download link for tomorrow. So make sure you tune in and listen. And guys, listen, we are as grateful as you are. You seem to be for us, and we appreciate all the nice Thanksgiving wishes and holiday wishes we've been getting from you guys from so many different sources.
Thank you.
But it's like 10x our way back to you because you guys have made our dreams possible. We so much love doing this podcast, except for the past week where we need a week off. This is something we look forward to together. This is a bit of a, dare I say, passion project for Julie and I. We like to try out new content for new books and new things that we can do to keep ourselves from becoming complacent. I mean, again, our vision and our goal for ourselves was never just to get to the point where we didn't have to do anything. Our goal, our vision for ourselves was to always improve. And you guys can do the same thing, and varying degrees. Don't think you have to 10x all aspects of your life. That's a recipe for disaster. But do realize that whatever it is that you're, wherever you're complacent in your life, it's important that you recognize that, and you maybe reconsider the approach to that particular thing and stop taking it for granted, or stop thinking good enough is good enough. Because whatever it is, wherever it was, as far as its efficiency, let's say, for example, lead generation again, it's going to go in the opposite direction, and it's going to leave you wanting. And another always reminder for all of you guys is, if you want to have Julie and I be your sponsors at eXp Realty, feel free to text me directly at 512-758-0206. Just text me directly and let's talk about eXp Realty, 512-758-0206. In the meantime, please do listen to the show starting tomorrow. And the topic is going to be 15 thoughts to embrace while planning your best year ever. And then we're going to roll right into the real estate treasure map for the month of December. You guys have a fantastic day. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.